Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, South Africa calls for the UAE to quickly extradite two arrested brothers accused of using their political influence to corruptly win state contracts and influence ministerial appointments. The Guptas fled in 2018 and were subject to an Interpol red notice. Also, Belgium's king heads to DR Congo for an historic visit 2 years after expressing his regrets for wounds of the past. Belgium's colonization of the African nation was one of the most brutal of its time. And Sudanese musician Noureddine Jaber, known as Nori, gives voice to long-marginalised eastern communities. He and his band Dorpa have been entrancing audiences in Omdurman as they musically represent the culture of the BELGIAN nomads. This year saw their first ever international album release. But first, South Africa's ruling ANC party is pushing for the United Arab Emirates to extradite the notorious Gupta brothers as quickly as possible. AJ and Abdul Gupta are some of South Africa's most wanted suspects, accused of using their sway over former President Jacob Zuma to win contracts and influence government. The brothers were arrested in Dubai on Monday following a red notice issued for them by Interpol last year. Nadine Ferrand tells us more.
South Africans, including the ruling African National Congress, are eagerly awaiting the extradition of brothers Atsu and Rajesh Gupta from Dubai. The UAE and South Africa signed an extradition accord last year, and South Africans are excited to see the brothers face trial here. The National Prosecuting Authority says it is engaging with the relevant authorities to do so. Around 15 billion euros was stolen from the South African people during Jacob Zuma's presidency, most significantly from the crippling state power supply Eskom and failed state railway company Transnet. The Gupta family was allegedly the primary beneficiary of this corruption. Through their close ties with Zuma, the family manipulated procurement processes with state companies and rewarded Zuma and his family for facilitating this. The family allegedly benefited financially from contracts with state companies through dozens of shell companies, and also from fees solicited from global companies who wanted to do business in South Africa. The family's network stretches around the globe and includes a Swiss construction company, two German IT giants, a Chinese state outfit, and a major accounting firm. They also influenced and dictated many top government appointments, and sometimes they alerted ministers of their new positions even before the president. They fled to Dubai in 2018 when Jacob Zuma was removed as president. The corrupt relationship between Zuma and the Guptas was named state capture because it affected almost every state-owned entity, and it was the subject of a 4-year-long investigation by Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. It was Jacob Zuma's refusal to testify in the probe last year which led to his eventual arrest and short imprisonment.
Nadine Ferrand there for us. Now, King Philippe of Belgium has begun a historic visit to the Democratic Republic of Congo, a country his ancestor once brutally ruled as his personal estate. The monarch is there hoping to strengthen ties between the two countries after years of tension, particularly under former Congolese President Joseph Kabila. Our correspondent Clément Bonnereau hit the streets of the capital, asking people there what they think of the visit.
For many Congolese people, King Philippe's visit should first and foremost be an opportunity to discuss Belgium's colonial legacy in DR Congo. 2 years ago, the king expressed his deep regrets for crimes committed under colonial rule, but some expect a lot more from the Belgian monarch.
I would just like to say that I think he needs to apologize to us for what the Belgians did to us in the past.
The first thing he should do is to ask for forgiveness, to apologize to the Congolese people for the crimes that Belgium committed in the Congo. Our ancestors were tortured. Our ancestors were whipped.
Belgium's colonial legacy has been at the heart of political debates in Belgium for the past couple of years, and Brussels is trying to make amends for the past. A tooth of the former Prime Minister, Patrice Lumumba, who was assassinated in 1961, will be returned to the Congo in the coming weeks. And Belgium has also promised to return art objects which were stolen during the colonial era.
Until now, our works of art, for the most part, are in Belgium. And yet, we've built new museums, big buildings to better preserve them.
King Philippe's visit also comes in a context of renewed violence in the east of the country, where the DRC accuses Rwanda of supporting the M23 rebel group. Some Congolese people are calling on Belgium to get more involved in this issue.
Congo cannot be abandoned to its fate. We need the king to be able to speak out for Congo, as he has done in the past, and make our voice heard around the world. I want Belgium to work alongside the Congolese people so that Congo can find peace again.
Besides Kinshasa, the King and the Queen are also expected to visit Lubumbashi in the south of the country and Bukavu in the east.
Now, Mali's junta has given itself until March 2024 to restore civilian rule that was disrupted by a coup in August 2020. The country's military rulers are hoping the move will be enough to see sanctions brought in by regional bloc ECOWAS lifted. Mali had originally proposed a 5-year election timeline earlier this year. Selina Sykes tells us more.
La durée de la transition est fixée à 24 mois pour compter du 26 mars 2022.
It's been ruling the country since a coup in August 2020. After coming under increasing pressure from its West African neighbours, Mali's military junta said it will restore civilian rule in less than 2 years' time, with a deadline fixed for March 2024 after a decree was signed by military commander and interim president Assimi Goïta. The move comes just 2 days after a meeting between members of the Economic Community of West African States, where leaders agreed to not lift strict sanctions, including border closures and restrictions on financial transactions. The bloc wanted a transition of 16 months, but Mali's military junta has opted for 5 months longer, though it is far from their original plan to extend their rule for 5 years. West African leaders are expected to meet for another summit in early July, which could see a gradual easing of sanctions if certain conditions are met.
Well, Cameroon's defence ministry says that soldiers killed 9 civilians, including a baby, because of a misunderstanding. Troops had reportedly been searching for a colleague when they came across the angry villagers in Misong in the English-speaking northwest region last week. It's caught up in a violent separatist insurgency in which more than 6,000 people have been killed in the country since 2017. Meanwhile, nearly 40,000 Cameroonian refugees in the US have recently been granted temporary protected status, meaning that they can stay and work for up to 18 months. The US has said the status could be reinstated if the security situation in Cameroon does not improve. A month after the death of the president of Ivory Coast's lower house of parliament, and the ruling party's candidate has been overwhelmingly elected to the job. Even opposition parties rallied to his support, in a positive sign in a country that's seen deep and damaging political divisions over the last decade or so. Sam Bernhardt tells us more.
ADAMA BICTOGO's win didn't really come as a surprise here, but his 97.5 margin of victory shows the impressive strength of his candidacy for the election for President of the National Assembly. The strong backing from opposition member is maybe the most surprising aspect of this vote. All parties openly came together in support of BICTOGO, and such collaboration hasn't been seen since the end of a violent post-electoral crisis in 2011. BICTOGO's rival candidate, Jean-Michel Amakou, on his side, slammed the cross-party consensus, accusing MPs of ignoring the wishes of the people they represent. BICTOGO is a well-known Ivorian political voice, but he's faced some rocky time recently. In February, he was dismissed as the leader of the ruling RHDP coalition, but he's known for his ambition and seems to be back in business, but there may be limits to how far he'll go. Many observers say that behind closed doors it's been made clear that he is not being considered as a possible successor to President Alassane Ouattara, who is unlikely to run for another term in 2025.
Sam Bernard there for us. Now, they've been described as providing the soundtrack of a revolution. Sudanese musician Nouri and his band Dorpa give voice to Sudan's non-Arab minorities, and their passion to share the sounds of the Beja people have only ramped up since the military's takeover last year. Their music has drawn global attention and seen their first international album release this year. Laurent Berstecker has more.
The story began in the early 90s when a young Noureddine Jaber found a discarded electric guitar in a scrapyard near Port Sudan. The find inspired him to create his own instrument, the tambo guitar.
The idea behind this instrument came from the rich heritage we have. I wanted the tambura and the guitar to produce music together at the same time, but in different ways.
With the help of 5 other musicians, Jaber formed the band Dorpa in 2006 in order to promote and spread the distinct music of the Beja people. This tribe of nomadic herders based in Sudan's eastern coastal regions makes up nearly 10% of the country's population, but it's long been marginalized by the ruling majority, especially during Omar al-Bashir's 30-year rule. Mixing traditional melodies with the more modern sounds of rock, blues, and jazz, Dorpa's first album, Beja Power, aims to give a voice to the unique language, culture, and music of this long-forgotten tribe.
Our main vision and goals is to promote the Belgian music so it won't be wiped out through the years, upcoming years.
After Omar al-Bashir's ousting in 2019, transitional authorities vowed to do more to protect Sudan's neglected minorities. A glimmer of hope for the Beja people, which was quickly swept away as the fragile government was toppled by a coup last October.
That is awesome. I need a tambour guitar now. Anyway, that is, though, all we have time for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again if you can. Till then, take care.
"20 years after the end of the civil war, Angola is struggling to move on. The weapons may be silent, but the wounds have not finished healing.
Quando isto acontece, não estamos a castigar angolano, estamos a vender o nosso ódio em relação ao outro.
They fought for their country, but feel left behind as rampant corruption widens the gap of inequality.
Ninguém que está a fazer isso. O anticombatente é lixo, é tapete para pisar para eles.
But a new generation of activists appears poised to pick up the flame, demanding yet again.
Para mim, viver em paz seria viver numa sociedade com justiça.
Revisiting Angola on France 24 and France24.com.